Hi, Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your November 2025 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, as we begin the month of November, we are in Scorpio season. Scorpio is a harmonizing sign to Capricorn. Some of you probably know this. You're talking about earth and water, and it forms a sextile. And this is coming from the 11th house of hopes and wishes, gains, meaning money from career, your business, and friendships and groups. And so the sun there and Mars there could be some kind of situation going where you are extra social, and it might be for business reasons. It might be for something, Mars can really uh, be the driving force behind somebody motivated to accomplish something. So when we're talking about the groups that you belong to or just friends, some kind of social networks, Mars can be additional activity there. And so it could be that you are doing something that connects with networking, and that might have something to do with your career. Sometimes it might be some kind of conflicts with a group, like you are clashing with their ideals. The 11th house is quite idealistic, I would say. It's ruled by Aquarius in astrology, and it's the humanitarian house, and it has probably, I would call it a lot of lofty ideals. And so Mars can be even like activism, and maybe you're involved with a cause and you're really engaged in November with that cause. Okay. And then on the 4th of the month, Mars goes into Sagittarius, which is a sign right before you, and that's your 12th house. So when Mars is in the 12th house, it's in this place that's supposed to be about, solitude, meditation, and Mars is like rearing to go. So what do you do in those situations? Well, you're going to have to kind of accommodate that very active energy in this very contemplative house. One thing that you could do is hatha yoga, which is the yoga that when we say yoga, that's typically what people are referring to is the physical type of yoga, because the 12th house is the spiritual house. So spiritual practices like yoga can really help regulate the nervous system, and even like because the 12th house is meditation, walking meditation, where you're in movement. You're not just like sitting there contemplating your navel, but you're actually moving, taking walks. That could be very helpful for that excess energy in this house that might be associated with even more like sleep. So this is your hibernation period, if I can say that word, especially when the sun goes there, because then that will mark a month before Capricorn season. So just keep that in mind. The 12th house is the house of secret enemies, and Mars can really, kind of be something connected to that. So one of the things that it's really important to understand is, because I think like the 12th house, like talking about secret enemies, we can be our own worst enemy. So this can be a great time for eradicating your own bad habits, because and you may have that kind of push to do so with Mars there. You might have that courage and that resolute force to do so, because the 12th house can be the house of self-undoing. So anything that you need to work on in terms of self-sabotage and things, this can be very helpful for that. And I think just like I said about exercise or like walking, that can be a great way to kind of break free from bad habits. On the 5th, the very next day, we have a full moon at 13 degrees of Taurus, and that is falling in your 5th house of love and creativity. This can be a time, I do believe that for some of you, this might be even the ending of some kind of affair. Oh, yes, because Mars, I do believe that Mars in the 12th house sometimes can be like a secret. When we talk about like a love affair or something like that, Mars can be very um, clandestine. In the 12th house, it can be like lust and things like that. But that full moon in the 5th house can be like if you have had any kind of an affair, because the 5th house is not the house of commitment. It's the house of falling in love, but it's also a house of recreational sex. I got to keep it real. And Mars is libido. So that can be something. Maybe you're sublimating your libido and trying to transcend it spiritually because, with a spiritual context because of some kind of situation that you've gotten yourself into. But one nice thing is that if you have any kind of past love or lust situation, the full moon could bring an end to that so that you're not trapped in, because even if you're not seeing that person, you may still carry a torch for them, as they say. And this can block, your potential for meeting somebody that you really do want to be with. So it's one of those things where you want to be as detached as possible so that you can bring new love in if that's something you're looking for. This is if you're trying to conceive children, this is a great time for it because the 5th house can be the conceiving of children, the conception of children, creative projects. Great time for either finishing them but birthing them. On the 6th, Venus goes into Scorpio, back in that 11th house. So Venus in the 11th can be, you're very popular, you're getting money. Like I said, it's the house of gain, so you may find that you are really experiencing a lot of financial boost. You could meet love, you can meet someone, a love interest when you're out and about with your friends. On the 7th, Uranus goes back into Taurus. And this is one of the things that is making me think that for some Capricorn people who are single, you had Uranus in your 5th house for years, okay? Probably at least 7 years. I wish I could remember exactly what year it entered. I want to say 2017, but it might have been 2018. I'm going to have to check on that. But in any case, a long time. And now that it's back there, this is going to be the last gasp of Uranus and Taurus, and it's going to be going back into Gemini. I think in the end of January of 2026, but I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It's in Taurus now, back in that 5th house. And you may have felt for the last 7 years that you have been a little bit, even if you are happily married, let's say, happily coupled, you may have still felt that love for you is more giving and receiving of freedom than, for some people, love, it's like a prison sentence because it's like, you don't necessarily want someone to love you if it's going to mean that you can't have your own life and you have to just be like doing somebody else's bidding. So there may be some different ways that you have looked at love, and you're revisiting this temporarily. Also, if you're single, this could bring some real curveballs in your love life. But I think to be honest with you, I think that Uranus in the fifth house overall is rather good. If you own a business and maybe you kind of took time off from it, maybe it's a side business, this would be especially something to do with maybe an online business. This could bring that back to you where you dabble in it again. Maybe you kind of thought that it was dead and now you're rethinking it and maybe you're going to try it out again. And that's always a good thing because sometimes people make assumptions that something is not going to work out, and it's simply because there was a rough patch and they might not have realized that, it was going to get better. So see what happens in this area in the next few months. You could even meet someone again very suddenly. A lot of you that are single may have had at least sometimes when, Uranus is in this house, you will meet somebody and it's like love at first sight, but it can also leave very quickly too because it's like a very erratic energy. But that's not to say that in all cases it would do something like that. It's just to say that it's, it could be like two ships passing in the night, and maybe it's very intense very quickly and then it kind of just as quickly dissipates. So something could come back. And this is especially true because on the 9th, Mercury goes retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. And this is your 12th house. So it isn't a love house per se, but anytime there's a Mercury retrograde, you could hear back from someone in your life. And in terms of rethinking something, this could be meditation. Actually, when Mercury is retrograde, that's like probably the best time to meditate because it's all about going within and Mercury is your mind. And it's like you're kind of like, I can't think of the yogic term for, I don't know if it's called dhyana or something like that, but it's like you're you're withdrawing from outer sensory stimulation and kind of like going back into your own self. Also, past life recall can happen because 12th house is the house of past lives. And and it's also the dream state. So if you might have prophetic dreams and they might be of past lives. On the 20th, new moon at 28 degrees of Scorpio in that 11th house. New people may be coming into your reality. New groups that maybe you align with, or also new ways to, gain money, new ways to boost your gains, new, like hopes and wishes. There is an astrologer who has since passed, and she said when you have a new moon in your 11th house to make 40 wishes. I tried to follow that once and I didn't get very far because, it's hard to come up with 40 things that you want, I think. And so if you try this method, you could do things that are very small as well. You don't have to, it could be like, I want to get those cute new boots or something like that. It doesn't have to be like, I want to grow my business to 6 figures or something in the next year or whatever. So that's happening. And then the very next day on the 21st, the sun goes into Sagittarius. And so the sun is going into that 12th house, and that begins that hibernation period for the next month. Because just remember that when you have your birthday, or if this is about your ascendant, whatever degree it's in Capricorn, sun or rising, that's the cusp of your first house for your solar chart or for your natal chart. And that's when you officially begin a new cycle. So this will be the 12th house, and so you may need more rest. You may feel more introverted, want quiet time, retreat. On the 27th, Saturn goes direct. That's your ruler, so that's more significant for you, at 25 degrees of Pisces. This is your third house, another sextile like Scorpio, but in the opposite direction. So you have had Saturn retrograding here for several months, and now Saturn is direct. Have you been trying to have an online presence? Have you been, the third house can be social media and the internet in general, even whether you're doing vlogs, blogs, or, like a YouTube channel, Instagram. And if it's connected with a business, in other words, I'm not just talking about just to do it, but I mean, if it has something to do with maybe career matters, because Saturn is serious. Saturn isn't about just screwing around. It's about like solidifying something, laying down foundations in that area. Another thing that some Capricorns may have had to do is have more responsibility with a sibling, maybe take care of them or something along those lines. And that may be resuming. Maybe there was some break in the action and now you're taking care of them again. This is just temporary because Saturn, like Uranus, will be going back into Aries. I mean, not they're not both going into Aries. I'm thinking of Neptune, but Saturn will be going back into Aries in 2027. 2026, I mean, I'm sorry. And so we have that last gasp, and this is a 30-year cycle, so it's very significant. And so there's something that needs more attention. If you're doing a writing project and you kind of took time off from it, or maybe even like as some kind of a teaching assignment, or if you are learning something, learning a skill, all of these things could have been connected to this Saturn retrograde. And you're kind of retracing your path and things will be moving forward. Even like at some time in the near future, you're going to have that post shadow period, but every day it gets a little bit closer to changing back into Aries and back into that fourth house of home and family. On the 29th, Mercury goes direct, 20 degrees of Scorpio, and that can be moving forward with 11th house matters related to people that you associate with, the gains, ideas for how you can increase your earnings and your hopes and wishes. On the 30th, Venus goes into that 12th house. And that can, if you're doing any kind of like artistic projects, you may choose to do it behind the scenes. And as I had stated earlier, you did have a full moon in Taurus in that fifth house earlier in the month, and that might be connected to some kind of creative project that you're doing that you will unveil at a later date. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.